The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the bustling streets of Alaye City. As darkness crept across the metropolis, the familiar symphony of honking horns and street vendors' calls was shattered by the sharp, menacing sound of gunfire. The echoes reverberated through the narrow alleys and wide boulevards, a chilling sign that something terrible had happened. Meanwhile, in the affluent neighborhood of Koki, far from the chaos of the streets, a group of powerful men gathered around a massive mahogany table in a luxurious mansion. These were the Kingmakers of Muguland, the shadowy figures who pulled the strings of the nation's political machinery. Tonight, they had convened to decide the fate of one of their own. At the head of the table sat Chief Biola Eleniyan, a man whose ascent to power had been as swift as it was mysterious. His thick-framed glasses perched on the bridge of his nose, obscuring eyes that many believed could see straight into a man's soul. The tension in the room was palpable, each man's face a mask of steely resolve, but their eyes betrayed the fear that lurked just beneath the surface. The only sound was the occasional click of a lighter as someone lit a cigarette, adding to the haze of smoke that hung in the air. Suddenly, the double doors at the far end of the room burst open, and a man staggered in, clutching his side. Blood seeped through his fingers, staining the rumpled white of his shirt. The men at the table leapt to their feet, their chairs scraping loudly against the polished marble floor.
"Bogunlo is dead," the man gasped before collapsing to the ground.
A collective gasp filled the room as people absorbed the shocking news that Williams Bogunlo, the charismatic politician who had once posed a serious threat to Chief Biola Eleniyan's carefully constructed empire, was dead. The implications were as clear as the blood now pooling around the fallen man. Chief Biola Eleniyan remained seated, his expression unreadable. Slowly, he rose to his feet, his gaze sweeping across the shocked faces of the men who had, until moments ago, considered themselves untouchable.
It begins, the price of power.
As the men exchanged glances, one of the bolder members of the group finally spoke up.
Chief, did you order this?
Eleniyan's eyes narrowed.
You think I would do something so reckless? This wasn't my doing. I need to know who did this. Find out now.
Chief Eleniyan's expression turned somber as he sat back down, contemplating the implications. He knew people would blame him. They always did. After all, Bogunlo was his biggest rival. But Eleniyan genuinely had nothing to do with this, yet he also knew that bearing the weight of such accusations was part of the price of power, and he was prepared to pay it. Eleniyan's expression remained inscrutable, but a flicker of something, sadness perhaps, passed through his eyes. He knew that no matter what he said, no matter how he protested his innocence, the blame would fall on him. Bogunlo was his biggest rival, and in the eyes of the people, that made him the prime suspect. As his people kept looking at each other in shock and confusion at the unexpected development, Chief Eleniyan sighed, his shoulders slumping slightly. He knew that in the world of Mugulandian politics, truth was often irrelevant. Perception was everything, and the perception now was that he was a killer. It was an accusation he would have to weather, a storm he would have to endure. He had chosen this path, and he was prepared to face its consequences. Outside, Alaye City roared in response to the news. Protests erupted spontaneously as rumors of Bogunlo's assassination spread like wildfire. The streets were flooded with people demanding justice, their cries echoing off the walls of the city that had given birth to so many broken dreams.
Justice for Bogunlo. We demand justice.
But above the chaos, like a shadow looming over the land, was the figure of Chief Biola Eleniyan, a man who had mastered the art of political survival and who knew that tonight was just the opening move in a much larger, bloodier game. As night fell, Chief Biola Eleniyan returned to his seat, his fingers tapping a steady rhythm on the table. He had climbed too high, seen too much, to be afraid now.
My enemies will come for me, as they always have, but this time, I am ready. I will not just survive, I will dominate.
Outside, the gunfire continued, a stark reminder that in the world of Mugulandian politics, power was not simply earned, it was seized, manipulated, and often paid for in blood. And tonight, Chief Biola Eleniyan was prepared to pay that price.